Welcome back to the Heart of the Bear Factory. This is Pawsitive Impact, the show that talks about making plushies with a purpose. Joining me is Jimmy Banish. He is the Chief Operating Officer of the Bear Factory, located in beautiful Whitmore Lake. Jimmy, what's happening?
Just another beautiful day. Happy summer's here.
Yeah, so this is a kind of a, I'm not going to call it part two to the last episode, but on the last episode we discussed the 25 years of the Bear Factory. We dove a little bit into kind of where things stand with tariffs and just the global supply chain, and then talked a little bit about the vision of the Bear Factory in the next year. On this episode, what we talked about diving into was a little bit more on the tariffs and what that process looks like. Mm-hmm. And I think we should break this into three segments. One is just historically what happened. Mm-hmm. Two is what our current administration is giving back in tariffs, the timeline, everything that's supposed. And then three is kind of what we learned from everything in the last year and how that strengthened the Bear Factory's positioning moving forward. So let's start with historically where we were, which, one word, nightmare. And it's one of those things it's not even a self-inflicted nightmare. It's an external circumstance that as a business owner, you guys had no control over. Mm-hmm. So let's go back into that and just talk about, just at a high level, everything that was going on.
Yeah, so last February was when the Trump administration announced that they're going to start doing tariffs, specifically ones focused on China. That's in, I believe it was February, we incurred like a 20% tariff, which was like freaked us out at the time. And then that quickly escalated throughout March and April, all the way up to like a 150% tariff at one point in time, which at that point, we were like, we need to shut the doors. Like there's no way that you can take a 150% increase on your cost of goods overnight and be able to put out a good product and bring that over, just the cash to take it. You're not going to start pulling out loans to pay tariffs. And that was something that I was really adamant on to Jerry, because Jerry was willing to take some personal financial risk. And I'm like, no, we're not pulling out loans to pay tariffs. It's just not happening. So then in April, we announced, at that time there was a 100% tariff. We announced we were going to do like a price increase starting May 1st, and it was like pandemonium. And then I think it was the first week in May, Trump said, all right, we're going to do a 30% tariff for the next 90 days. But after that 90 days, anything can happen again, but get your product over here. So what that meant for us is our usual 120-day to 150-day production timeline needed to be whittled down to like 60 days, and we needed to allow another 30 days of transit shipping to get it here, which was like a whole thing. Just producing the product, let alone bringing it over here, has expenses associated with it.
And it's because the tariff doesn't hit until it arrives in port, not when it sets sail.
Correct. It hits the border of the U.S.
So you have to plan for the transit and arrival time and all of those pieces, not just getting it on the boat.
Yeah, and you can imagine that we're one of thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of companies where it's like this mass exodus of product coming across the water.
So everybody's doing the same thing.
Everyone's doing the same thing. I mean, we made the decision to send our traditional route through Port of Vancouver, rail it through Canada Rail, and then bring it over in Wisconsin or Detroit was not going to be viable, because we easily see 60-day transit times with that. So we ended up opting into doing things called transloading, which is where we send it to the Port of LA. It's offloaded, all the products brought off, thrown on pallets. It's wrapped up, palletized, and then put on a truck. And then there's a two-man trucking team that literally drives it from LA all the way to here in Whitmore Lake, Michigan, over like 36 hours. They just beeline it. And to do that costs anywhere from $5,000. I think we paid up to $7,000 for a couple of per container, and we had about 40 to 50 containers that we did that for. So if you start to do the math, we're 300, 400,000 plus in additional shipping charges that we were taking on the chin on top of the valuation of each one of our containers is anywhere from 65 to maybe sometimes 100,000 per container. So there's a 30% tariff on top of that. So 30 grand for tariffs, an extra $5,000 to $7,000 in transit. So now your transit is, instead of it being historically transit's like, 8 to 9,000 depending where you go. We were paying 15 grand a container. So 15 grand plus, a 30. You got $45,000 a container, and we had about 40 to 50 of those.
So you're paying 40 to 60% in addition to just the cost of the container.
Yeah, and so that when we talk about cash flow restriction, like that's some of those raw numbers that causes that.
Yeah, and I like that you're going into the details of this because it's really easy just to be like, oh, our expenses increased. It's like, yeah, but how much? And being able to pull the curtain back and say, this is what we faced. And then the other side of it is, while you had a 40 to 60% increase on the containers, what did you pass along to the customers?
Yeah, so these are like some of the nitty gritty in the trenches of what gets us to like the customer forward facing side of things. Being most of other plush companies out there, stuffed, unstuffed, they're charging anywhere from 15 to 20% in tariff surcharge at checkout. The most we've ever charged was 7. So we were, only passing on a third to maybe 40% of what that tariff surcharge was to the customers, which that amount pretty much was covering like the expedited shipping charges that we were paying. And the goal was that all that our customer was really going to notice at the end of the day was they had a 7% tariff surcharge at checkout. That's what they had to focus on, because there's so much, if you paid attention to mainstream media, there's just so much turmoil, and the news media, that the cycle thrives on turmoil and distress. So we wanted to try to pull that away and be like, hey guys, there's a lot going on. All you need to focus on is there's a 7% tariff surcharge. Yes, we know that we're significantly lower. We believe that we need to do this because we need to support you guys, and our goal is we need to stay in stock on product, and we need to create price consistency.
Yeah.
Because it was, from what we saw in the early spring last year, it was like 20%, it was 50%, it was 100%, it's 150%. That's anything but stability.
Yeah.
So creating that stability for our customers was really the end goal. And then we were just going to take it on the chin from there to just weather the storm as long as we could.
So when you were getting feedback from customers, what was the common thread of response? What was the general? I know there's always going to be people who are like, oh, it's super fine, and people who are like, what the hell's going on? But what was the general response from people?
Honestly, I was very nervous. I mean, I'll be real. Like these conversations like today, like you got to be tactful. You have to be transparent, and that's exactly what we did last year. I spent a good 2 weeks calling all the customers that I have relationships with, and I had the rest of our team who, they call their customers they have good relationships with, and just like explain and have these conversations with them. And that's when I became really thankful and appreciative of our customer base and how great they are, because I pretty much had all but one customer who disagreed with the fact of like what we were doing. And we're talking, I probably called about 100 plus customers and had these conversations with, and all of them were super supportive, and almost like we're doing like rallying cries, behind us, like, hey, we got your back, we understand, this isn't you didn't make that decision, blah, blah, blah. And I think that's what really gave us like the confidence to keep pushing through. And it's because our customers are so great, why we were really willing to take the risk that we did to absorb so much of that cost, because we knew that if we support them, they were going to support us. And even though things might get tight for us, we can count on them to still be coming back to us for repeat business to float us through things. Because if we didn't have that repeat business and people were freaked out and just started closing doors, it would have been bad for them, it would have been bad for us, it would have been bad for our supply chain partners. It's just like a whole trickle down effect. So it's you know, there's definitely some feeling like a parent of sorts where we didn't talk a lot about what we're talking about today last year because we don't want to freak people out.
Yeah.
You know, the last thing you want to do is spook them.
For sure, and nobody knew where it was going to go. I remember when the conversation happened in May, and it was like, hey, in 90 days, you have this kind of moratorium, it's 30%. After that, it might go back to 138%, or, you know, it depends on how the administration's feeling that day. Because there wasn't really a plan around it.
No, they had that 90-day, 30% window, and then at the end of it, I think they did like a 30 or 60-day extension, and then it dropped down to 20% for like the foreseeable future kind of thing through the end of the year. So we pretty much just ran transloads like all year last year and continued to front those costs. And that kind of lands us, you know, where we're at today, where now as of the end of February, I think it was February 20th, they announced that those, you know, tariffs were illegal. And then on the 24th of February was when they started to say any imports coming in can no longer be eligible for IEEPA tariffs. And then the Trump administration came back and slapped down like a temporary, I don't know if it was a 90 or 120 day, it ends at the end of June this month. So they had it slapped down like a 10% kind of thing that we've been living with. But I think what's important to note is we have 10% tariff product in the building, but because we increased our stock position 2 times last year, you know, we have inventory for about 6 to 8 months on the floor. So we're still, you know, if you look at, we had a bunch of our Chinese New Year product that came in that second week in February because we ship everything in January with everything shutting down in February. We had a bunch of containers that hit mid-February that still got nailed with a 20%. Yeah. So we're still sitting on that. And if you look at, you know, our forecasting, we'll be sitting on that for 6 to 8 months, which that takes us into like the fall. So we're still working through 30%, cutting into 20%. Yeah, obviously there's SKUs that are high sellers that just run out of stock, and then those come back in, and those are the 10%. But by and large, you know, we're still working through 20 and 30% tariff product right now.
Yeah. So that takes us to what the expectation is around the tariffs, the refunds, the process. In the last episode, we touched on how there was an application process midway through that changed. And there's still no clear guidance on when the tariff refunds are going to happen. So assuming that they happen in the next 12 months, what's the position of the Bear Factory on how those refunds are apportioned?
Yeah, thankfully, Customs Border Patrol, or CBP, finally kind of got with the times, updated their ACE portal, which is where if you're an importer, if you ever are getting refunds back from CBP, it's now being done through ACH wire, through the ACE portal. So if this was all happening and they didn't do that, it would be, I don't even know what would happen, because it's already like kind of chaos. But fortunately, they implemented that ACE portal, so things are a little bit more digital and streamlined. But CBP doesn't like to make things easy. They've already changed what their requirements are to submit to get tariff refunds back once. And with these submissions, like for us, we have to work through our broker, and our broker only has so many people who are qualified to make these types of additions. Like, because we even offered like, hey, is there Excel documents or something that we can go through, and we're like updating and providing information to assist you with all of these shipments that we brought through. And they're like, no, like we have to work through our specific portal, and we're the only ones who are qualified to be able to do it. I'm like, okay, like I get it. If we can help you, let us know. But like, I feel bad for our brokers. Like Kristen, who I work with, she manages all of our shipments. I work with her like daily on just like what's coming, where is it, what needs to get picked up. And she's already strapped with her day-to-day. Now on top of that, she's needing to deal with hundreds, if not thousands, of import detail records that need updating to be able to submit for customers like us, like it's not easy and it's super difficult. It's important to note that you need to be the importer on record to be eligible for these IEEPA tariff refunds. So like our customers who bought our product, they're not eligible. We are, because we're the importer of record. So they have started to see some people receiving refunds back as of like the first or second week in May. There's so many lawsuits that were taken out by really big companies last year. I would imagine those are all going to get settled up first before anyone else starts to get looked at. So there really is no timeline. And to be totally honest, like, I'll believe it when I see it, kind of thing. Like, we're not gonna, I would love to turn that 7% off like today, but the fact that there's nothing in our bank account, like it's hard to do that because you just don't know. Like the administration has shown to be drastic and volatile in the past. Who's to say that's not going to change again? So you kind of have to think the long term, but then also be realistic with what you actually have and what you think you're going to get.
And it sounds like too that when the refunds do come back, or if they come back, it won't even cover the expedited shipping fees that you had to leverage to even get the product across the country.
Yeah, I mean the shipping charges, the time and energy that we put into it. We have legal fees because we started contacting lawyers last year. We very well may need to work with like specific import lawyers to make sure we get IEEPA money back, which has, you know, costs associated with it. So I'm super thankful that we only passed on, you know, that third to a 40% tariff amount, because like as of right now, that pretty much is going to cover like our cost of doing business for last year. Like we don't have intentions of providing any refunds because we're still trying to recoup and make up for what happened last year. Right. Those suppliers out there who charged 15, 20%, I don't know what they're going to do. You know, they charge the full amount or a good portion of the amount. I foresee them needing to do refunds because we're obviously always wanting to do like right by our customer and do the right thing. And at this point, we're just trying to recoup. At this point, when you have like your bottom line take a 33% hit, but you survived, that's fine. You know what I mean? Like we were fortunate to even come out not in the red last year, you know, but we made those changes that we need to make, and we had the consistency with our customers that we had. So they're not easy decisions to make. They're tough conversations to have, and there's a lot that goes into it. And I just hope that customers remember, you know, all they really had to deal with was the 7% at checkout, where there's so much more. There's sleepless nights that went into this. There's so much more that went into even being able to put that 7%. So I believe that our customers are gonna, you know, support us with this and understand. But I think I'm thankful that we did the podcast last year and like pulled back the curtains and was very transparent. And that's kind of what we're doing right now is like trying to be as very transparent as possible with everything.
Well, it's important to see because I think what I've understood, and even in the media, they do such a poor job of representing this because even when tariffs are floated, the idea is, well, we're going to charge a 50% tariff on this product, and that's going to hurt the country we're importing from. It doesn't. But that's the narrative. Mm-hmm. Because in their mind, it's like, well, they're going to, you know, they're not going to want to ship as much, or they're going to need to pay, you know, for the tariffs at the port of entry. That's not how it works. The business that is ordering it pays it.
There's like posts I saw that's like, we've collected over X billion dollars in tariffs from China. I'm like, you haven't collected anything from China. Right. You've collected it from the small to mid-sized businesses and even large corporations. Like it's the back of the small business owners that this is on right now. Right.
And even when people talk about, well, we have a trade deficit with this company, you know, because, you know, we're importing more than they are, like that's not necessarily a bad thing, and it should never be perfectly balanced between both countries because then you would have two similar economies, and there are no two similar economies across the globe.
Yeah.
You're always going to have a trade deficit. It's just kind of making a lot of noise where there doesn't need to be. And going into this level of detail where we talk about 10, 20, 30, and then remember the one time it was like 142%, or it was insane. And then, well, what does it take to get it here? Because now there's a surge of containers coming in to all of the ports of entry in the States. How do we get it here? Well, it's Canada, it's rail, it's 2 men in a truck bussing it across the country, not the moving company, but it's two people, taking it across the country on a 36-hour tear. There's cost to all of that. And the fact that you and Jerry could sit down and say it's going to be a flat 7% to everybody, and we're going to risk and trust that this is going to work out on the back end, it was a significant risk for you guys to take. But it was also, it's how you retain customers and maintain the relationships that you've built over the last 25 years.
Well, and if people remember too, we were the first ones to announce like tariff surcharge. Like we did not have the guidance of like other companies. Like we heard of like some other companies and like other industries and what they're doing, but there is no industry leaders from the plush world that all got together and said, how are we going to handle this? It's like everyone was pretty much sitting there behind their walls waiting to see who was going to do what. And we're the ones who, when the tariffs were 100%, said, hey, we're going to have to do a 40% price increase starting May 1st. And we're the ones who came out once that dropped back down and said, we've done the numbers, this is what it's going to be. It's going to be 7% based off of A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
And there wasn't anyone that we were following the lead on by any means. Like we were one of the first out there making these decisions, and then everybody else in the industry followed suit according to their plan. Now, other people went more. Pretty much everyone else went more. But we were, like I said, we were trying to do right by our customers. And fortunately, there's a lot of growth that took place in that process. And, we've learned how to maximize our, stock storage per square foot in the facility. We've, invested in racking to be able to store more product, and we've rearranged things, and we've changed a lot of what we've done to be fully maximized from a stock position here at the facility. We held true to the product quality and continuing to focus on that product quality and increasing our sizing and the details that we've talked about in the past. So we held true to all of this, and there's even things right now that people aren't really talking about, like the whole Iran war. At the end of the day, even when we use recycled polyester, polyester is a petro-based product. So with oil prices going up, we're seeing 15 to 20% price increases on our cost right now that this is the first time I'm even talking about it in front of customers. Because like I said, we have to be like mom and dad at some point and not worry them. And like those are just costs that we're gonna eat that we're probably never really gonna talk about again with customers, because they don't need to worry about it. Like that's just what we have to focus on and we need to absorb, because we need to create that price consistency.
Yeah.
But people like those are the things that like people don't really talk about or think about.
Yeah. And it's good that you have this educational platform to inform people, because then it's not, well, it's 40%. Don't worry about what's in there. Don't worry about the surcharge. Just pay it and it's fine. It gives a lot more credibility and explanation of the why when you guys are making decisions.
Yeah, honesty and transparency is like a keystone corner of just what I believe in and what I think will make a really strong company and carry it through the years. And I think people know me for that. And so when it comes to having like real life conversations like this, it makes them a bit easier just because of that reputation. But there's a great lyric in a song by the Lumineers that it goes, it's a long road to wisdom, but a short one to being ignored, where all it takes is one hiccup where you're not transparent or truthful and your credibility is blown, especially in today's age of social media where things can just get blown out of proportion.
For sure.
So remaining consistent and true is really important.
Yeah, and the age of choice. There's more publicized options now for everything than there ever has been before. So, and this is what I tell my clients all the time in the marketing world is you have to have something that separates you from everybody else. And in the world where everyone is turning to AI and quick decisions and kind of stuffing everything everywhere, be the person that still values and pours into relationships. Because believe it or not, that is what makes things different. And when you actually do it, not just say it, because you can say, oh yeah, we value relationships. It's like, okay. But like, what does that look like? How does that play out in your business? Demonstrate that for me. Because Amazon can't have that as a tagline because it's all, largely generated by AI and automation. And that's what we expect. It's you getting what you know. Business like yours has to go on relationships because people are trusting you to deliver a product and they are committing a significant portion of their business to what you guys are doing operationally.
Yep.
And that's how it has to be led.
Yeah, we're 100% relationship based. The product holds the customer in place and I think keeps them here. And they appreciate it and it makes them successful, but it's those relationships that really allow growth for both us as well as our customer. Like when we really have an opportunity to lean into a customer of ours and we're truly working together to support them and they support us and they're providing us with forecasting on product that they're going to need because they have this big order coming up or this event coming up, that's when we really accelerate and are really successful. Is like the more information a customer can provide us, the better, because that allows us to give them a more curated experience. And if they need product and we know that it's coming in off a container, we'll literally stop us unloading a container, make sure we grab those boxes of product and ship it out for them. Like we just did a huge launch with Camp Jellystone last year. So we're in like 50 of the 75 Jellystone campgrounds, and we did a big launch this spring.
That's awesome.
We had to transload over a container product because we had some 60-day transit times come up over this past couple of months. And so we paid the extra charge, ate it, brought that product in, had a bunch of sales orders already set, pretty much brought all of those in, pulled them off the truck, slapped labels on them, and shipped them out yesterday. So we went through half the amount of inventory that we brought in. It didn't even sit in the building for 4 hours. Just because we had the level of communication with those customers, we knew what they needed, and we had all the right systems set up in place where it was literally just pull off, label, send.
Yeah. And everything we've just been talking about in the last 3 to 5 minutes is that third piece of the conversation, which is what was learned and how did that strengthen the Bear Factory moving forward. And it's all those pieces. We talked about it a lot last episode where it's innovation. It's new product lines. It's making sure shrinkflation doesn't hit the plushies where a normal bear becomes a gummy bear sized stuffed animal. One of my mentors, he told me in a business in a 10-year span, you're going to have 2 great years, 6 years that are pretty good, and 2 years that'll put you out of business if you're not careful. He's like, that's a typical life cycle of a business, but you don't know when those years are going to happen in that 10-year stretch. It's just a general rule. But in those 2 years where you feel like you could go out of business any day, hell of an education. So I imagine for you...
It's a master class that you didn't sign up for.
Yes, very well put. That's exactly right. But I imagine that last 12 months has prepared you for the next storm, because there's another one coming. No one's going to sit here and be like, wow, the next 40 years is going to be super chill, 20% growth every year. So I imagine it's been a pretty good education as well on that side.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about how I came over in like late 2017, lost Renee in October of 2019. Jerry had necrotizing fasciitis. He almost tapped out in January of 2020. Shut down. COVID hit in spring of 2020. We pretty much laid off our whole team by the end of that year because we were just suffering. We didn't have product. Everything was shut down. And then there was that, COVID relapse of people needing to like buy product. Like I've been able to buy stuff, and they just want to. I think they were buying happiness because everyone was like super depressed. So they're just like, it was the worst form of consumerism. So then we rebuilt a team, and then you run, you think you get through that, and then you run into what we ran into last year. So I understand why Jerry gets super stressed out, because to your point, like the last 10 years has been, not the last 9 years has been a wild ride.
Yeah.
But it's taught me so much, and I talked to a lot of people in supply logistics, and they're like, yeah, ever since 2020, just people have just started retiring. Like there's a lot of lost knowledge base in the industry with people who've been around for 20, 30, 40 years who just retired because they didn't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lost knowledge, unfortunately, that like the next generation won't have the advantage of. But that's why talking to those industry professionals who have been around for decades is really important. And I really make an effort to try to establish really great relationships when I find somebody who has been around for 20, 30 years, because I want to try to absorb as much as I can, because I know that their time is limited and they're going to be retiring at some point in time. Yeah. And that's just like lost knowledge.
Yeah, I tell my wife a lot that when we're talking about business, I started the company in 2018. 2019 is when I started taking it seriously. We haven't had 24 consecutive months of a stable economy since I started the company. Mm-hmm. And while that, you can say that and use it as an excuse, it's almost been great, because I've learned so much in the last 7-8 years that when we do have a period, I think about like when the real estate market collapsed in 2008, from 2011 to 2019, some of the best economic years our country has seen since the 90s. So looking at that, like there are going to be great periods coming, and I think all of these pieces that entrepreneurs have gone through is going to make them a lot stronger when those big periods hit. And if anything, it's a lesson that when it is good times, don't take your foot off the gas.
Yeah, we're waiting for that, like the next window of prosperity.
Yeah.
Because we want to finally buy a building. We want to double the footprint that we have. We want to expand the product line, continue to go deep in inventory, continue to grow the business. Like we're at capacity with our building. Probably what will hit revenue-wise top line this year is what this building is capable of producing. And we need to be like really watchful of growth. And we've really taken a hard look at what's growth versus like what's sustainable growth, because you don't want to bring on new business and not have product for your existing customer base. So we've really been keen on sustainable growth. Yeah. But we want a new building, and it's like I'm hoping that we can do that in the next 18 to 24 months, where we can go maybe buy a used one, fix it up a little bit, and continue to grow and expand and offer more to our customer base. But you can't do that in years like last year. No. So that's why getting the amount of trade shows that we're getting to this year is really important, because that's how you can grow the business. And it's like taking those, if you see a window, like you take it. And you kind of just need to go for it, rather than being overly cautious. And that it's easy to be overly cautious after a year like last year.
For sure. Yeah, it's easy to retreat in fear and be like, well, what if it happens again? It's like, well, it's not right now, so execute.
Yeah, exactly. Find those openings, and I think that's the moving target that can make a business successful, is knowing when you see, like kind of forecasting and seeing the opening coming and getting things rolling so that you can hit it at top speed.
Yeah, and that's even harder in a business like yours, because you have so much lead time. You know, you're essentially driving the Titanic. You can't make a speedboat maneuver. There's a little bit of a delay when you turn the wheel to the left. It's going to be a while until you're actually going left.
Yeah, and then you can't be like, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I want to talk about this guy. This is a hippogriff. You can say the name. I'm going to keep screwing it up.
So this is Hayes the Hippogriff, which is one of our fantasy/mythical line that is going to be coming out. He's actually on the water right now, making his way over here, but the whole...
Which is a shame, because he can fly.
Yeah, I know, right? He's a poor guy. He's shackled. The inspiration for Hayes was we started to watch Harry Potter with Araya around Christmas time, because like first Harry Potter I feel like is super iconic. It kind of just feels Christmassy.
Oh, for sure.
And so we watched the first one, and she was really into it. So then we like started to watch the other ones. And as anyone who's a Harry Potter fan knows, like they progressively get a bit darker,
Sure do.
and older audience. And there are times where she was like hiding behind a pillow and stuff, but she loves Harry Potter now. And so in watching that, they had the Hippogriff on there, and that kind of inspired me to look at like a Hippogriff. We have a griffin, a new Bigfoot. We have a new unicorn, a new dragon, and so I love having like spurts of inspiration. And what's cool too is that you mentioned like AI earlier. Like we're definitely using AI throughout our company. Like I think everyone should be engaging with it, but it's being smart about it.
Yes.
And how do you optimize your existing staff? And we probably could go. Maybe that's another great podcast. We can talk about AI next time. And just how we're utilizing it to support our team, because I think there's a lot of people freaked out about AI right now, about losing jobs, when my mindset is how do I optimize my team right now. But how I've optimized myself is like I'm using AI with my design process and coming up with design inspiration when we're making our plushies, which is great and has been a huge resource. But what's great about Hayes is this fantasy mythical collection is the first line that we've introduced where we've actually incorporated like AI for creative components as part of the design process, which has streamlined things and creates a really cute, awesome, detailed product.
That's great. That's great. So anything else for the listeners before we wrap today?
No, I think just we super appreciate, all of our customer base. Being 25 years in business is really important to us, and we wouldn't be here without your support. And if you watch this podcast and have any questions, our team is always open and happy to connect on that. And just making sure that transparency and level of contact is there, where we still get customers who call us and they're like, "You're a person, like you're not, auto-generated or whatever." It's like, yeah, like we're people. We want to have that customer service. So, we appreciate everyone. We're really excited about what's to come for the rest of the year, and just very grateful right now. Very grateful.
Awesome. Well, Jimmy, thanks for the time as always. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up Pawsitive Impact. We'll catch you next month with a new set of episodes. You can find all the details about the things we talked about in the show notes. Apart from that, we'll see you next time. Take care.